Landing without them. And as you see, we have a whole great list: Cooper, Keurig, Dr. Pepper, Rappaport Foundation, Waco Foundation, and of course Humanities Texas, which made this program possible today. So thank y'all for being here, and I'm going to introduce Dr. Henry to give you a welcome and introduce our speaker.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for being here on a Saturday morning to learn some more about our history. This is so exciting for me. Everyone knows that I'm an English professor. However, had I not been an English professor, I would have been a history professor because I love it just as much. So we need to remember that prior to the 1960s, in the South, we were legally segregated. In the North, we were de facto segregated, which meant that African American people were not able to roll into a city and check into a hotel. Yet they wanted to travel for leisure, they wanted to travel for business, and for art. We had many artists traveling around the country. Waco was actually a great spot for artists to come through, and in order to provide a place for them to rest their heads and have meals, we had private citizens who provided places for them. But coming into an unfamiliar city, how would you know that? That's what the Green Book provided. It provided lists of private homes across the country for people to rest. And so they would use the Green Book to do that. What is important to know is that this history is history that we should all know about. We should all be familiar with this. And so I am very excited that the Dr. Pepper Museum has seen fit to incorporate that kind of history into this new exhibit so that we can learn about this. It is imperative that we know our history. One of the reasons that we should know it is it shows us how we progress. It also shows us what we still need to do. And so today, I am going to take just a minute to introduce our speaker and have you learn about this fascinating history. So, Leslie Wilton is the Historic Resources Survey Coordinator for the Texas Historical Commission, where she manages the Historic Texas Highways and Historic Resources Survey programs. Prior to that, she did private sector environmental consulting and had an 18-year career in interior design. For over 15 years, she served on the Austin Historic Landmark Commission. She volunteered for Save Austin's Cemeteries, leading the grassroots effort to restore the 1914 Gothic Revival Chapel at the historic Oakwood Cemetery in Austin. Leslie has been researching and documenting African American sites in Texas since 2019, when she implemented the African American Travel Guide Survey Project. Working with interns and volunteers, Leslie recreates the histories of these businesses and proprietors. The project involves over 780 sites across the state. Leslie has a master's degree in historic preservation and a bachelor's in architecture from the University of Texas System and an associate's in interior design from Boulder College. Please help me welcome Leslie Wilton.
All right, good morning. Thank you for coming on this chilly day, but at least it's sunny, and I'm gonna lose everything up here. This has been a project of my heart. I love history, and I didn't know anything about Black history for the most part, other than, they talk about segregation, they talk about Brown versus the Board of Education, blah, blah. And I came across this Green Books thing when I was doing 2 historic highway projects. And it's like, this is just fascinating. What is this and what does it mean? What impact did it have on the country and the Black population? And as I dug into it a little further, I came up with a proposal to give to my boss, to give to his boss, to say, yes, you can do research on this. And it's like, really? I get to do this? I get to do history for fun, for work, and I get paid? Even better. So this has been something that just keeps on giving to me. I learn something in every town that I research. As Dr. Henry mentioned, there are 780 sites, so it's going to take a while to get through it. I had the dream that it would take 5 years and I'd be done. I'm 5 years in and I'm nowhere near done. There's so much to find out. So, what were green books, or more importantly, what were travel guides at the time? Because there was more than just the green book. So I came across this, and it was sort of like a AAA map book, and I'm going to have to start using a different reference because that population that used AAA maps is now aging and passing away, and younger generations are going, what's AAA maps? I don't know. So I'm getting old, I'm getting historic. But these travel guides were meant to help African Americans to locate places where they could purchase gas, get a haircut, buy a meal, sleep for the night, or enjoy some entertainment. And today I'm going to show you the different travel guides that were used in this project, then touch on some key points in Waco's history that impacted ethnic minorities. And since we are at the Dr. Pepper Museum, I'm going to showcase a handful of Waco's sites that would have served soft drinks, and then wrap up with some information about the project itself. So we used a total of 9 travel guides for this project, and the first one was Hackley and Harrison's Guide, the Chauffeur's Traveler's Bureau, the Negro Motorist Green Book, the Negro Handbook, Grayson's Guide, the Travel Guide, the Go Guide to Pleasant Motoring, the Nationwide Hotel Association Directory, and the Bronze American. Some of these guides just had one issue, while others had multiple years available. I'm going to talk briefly about each guide to show you how they were different and how they were similar. I'll start with the Negro Motorist Handbook because it is the best known. However, this was not the first African American travel guide. More commonly known as just the Green Book, it was established in 1936, but no known copies of the 1936 edition have been found. The 1937 edition only ran to 10 pages in length and listed just New York locations with a couple of New Jersey sites. It was not published during World War II. Its name changed in 1952 to the Negro's Traveler's Green Book rather than Motorists because it could be used by any type of traveler. The name changed again in 1963 to the Traveler's Green Book International Edition, indicating its expansion into other countries. A Harlem, New York postal worker, Victor Hugo Green, started the Green Book with his wife, Alma. She later took over publishing in 1952 and had an all-female staff. The purpose of the guide was to, quote, give the Negro traveler information that will keep him from running into difficulties, embarrassments, and to make his trips more enjoyable, end quote. It became an indispensable tool for safely navigating in the age of sundown towns, segregations, and lynching. The Green Book was modeled after 2 types of publications. The first one was the Automobile Green Book, which was a map guide for the Northeast region that was published by the Automobile Legal Association. This appears to have been like AAA travel maps. The other inspiration is said to be the Jewish food and travel guides, such as the Kosher Food Guide of New York City. Published quarterly, it listed hotels, summer resorts, and camps that catered to Jewish travelers, along with approved packaged foods that met kosher requirements. The Green Book combined features from both of these sources. Originally starting in New York City, the Green Book spread throughout the Northeast and later the rest of the country. Texas was added in 1939. Eventually, it went international to include Canada, the Caribbean, Latin America, Europe, and Africa. It was the longest-lasting publication and the most widely distributed, with a circulation of an estimated 2 million, starting in 1936 and ending in 1967. It started out priced at 25 cents and finished at $1. Shown here on the right is the page out of the 1958 Green Book showing hotels and restaurants in Waco. Another guide is the Hackley and Harrison's Hotel and Apartment Guide. According to Mia Bay, an editor of Race and Retail, this is believed to have been the earliest African American travel guide and was only around for 2 editions. This publication came about because W.E.B. Du Bois wrote to Sarah Harrison, the secretary of the local Negro Welfare Council, asking if there was a colored boarding house in New London, Connecticut. The booklet was created in direct response to this inquiry, fulfilling a need at the time. Ms. Harrison teamed up with Edwin Hackley, a journalist and lawyer. Here's Du Bois's letter dated November 8, 1929. Hackley and Harrison's guide only listed rooms and hotels. The guide's introduction says the greatest inconvenience of automobile travel has been, quote, its lack of knowledge of desirable hotel and apartment accommodations. This guide has been compiled to afford an authentic and reliable reference list of hotels and private apartments in principal cities in every state, with the assurance of courteous reception and hospitable service, end quote. Hackley and Harrison's guide was only published twice, as Mr. Hackley died shortly after the first publication, and Miss Harrison didn't continue the effort on her own. Waco was not listed in this guide. The Chauffeurs Travelers Bureau was based in Springfield, Missouri, and referred to its guide as the Chauffeurs Highway Atlas. This is not dated, but based on my research so far, the listings in the guide correlate to listings in city directories dating to the 1930s. This guide listed the state and city populations, with the Black populations broken out, and then extensive listings of restaurants, gas stations, information sources, doctors, Negro colleges, YMCAs, YWCAs, retail shops, libraries, etc. Waco is not listed, however, Paul Quinn College is included in the Negro colleges in Texas. The Federal Division of Negro Affairs was established in 1933, and it published what it called a tentative listing of Black hotels. Again, Waco is not listed. Published in 1942, the Negro Handbook is a different example, as it is an almanac of African American business statistics. The copy we had on file just contained the hotel listing page, which you see here. Waco is not mentioned. Unlike other guides which were organized by state, Grayson's guide is alphabetically organized by city. It debuted in 1937. It billed itself as a national directory of hotels, cafes, resorts, motels, where civil rights are extended to all. The listing included a wide variety of types: restaurants, hotels and rooms, nightclubs, cleaners, morticians, pharmacies, radio repair, medical clinics, grocery stores, theaters, amongst others. Waco is not mentioned. The travel guide was published from 1947 to 1963. Unlike Grayson's guide we had just saw, the travel guide included a wide variety of listings going from lawyers, doctors and dentists, hotels, gas stations, barber and beauty shops, restaurants and clothing stores. Its tagline was vacation and recreation without humiliation, and was a directory of accommodation that welcomed the patronage of all. It provided points of interest for each state. Texas had Big Bend National Park, Longhorn Cavern State Park, Lower Rio Grande Valley, Mineral Wells, Palo Duro Canyon State Park, Prairie View State College, along with the price for fishing license and the speed laws. Waco was not included. The Go Guide to Pleasant Boating was published from 1952 to 1965 by Andrew F. Jackson. Listings were limited to hotels and rooms, along with YMCAs and YWCAs, as they typically provided overnight accommodations. The Go Guide featured places in the United States, Canada, Alaska, and Mexico. Alaska didn't become a U.S. state until 1959. For Waco, the College View Court Hotel, the YMCA, and YWCA were listed. The Nationwide Hotel Association Directory and Guide to Travel's tagline was, "Where to go, what to see, and where to eat." I like that their introductory section said that listed members have, quote, pledged to maintain certain minimum standards. They are further urged and encouraged to have and maintain A1 moral standard, cleanliness throughout, friendly hospitality, excellent mattresses and springs, clean and inviting baths, modern heating, attractive appearance, comfortably furnished rooms, continuous hot water, proper lighting, and fair rates. Sounds like a nice place to stay, end quote. Its Texas lodgings had hotels, motels, and restaurants. Waco was not listed. Then the last guide, the Bronze American National Travel Guide, had a forward section that read, quote, "Racial discrimination has been and still is a very dominant feature on the American scene. Therefore, the Bronze American Travel Guide has been specifically designed to eliminate, as much as possible, the embarrassment of being refused accommodations based on race, creed, or color," end quote. So even in the early 1960s, these travel guides were still a necessary part of Black travel. Listings for Texas included hotels, tourist homes, motels, restaurants, service stations, YMCAs, and beauty shops. Waco sites included a variety of hotels and motels, the Ys, and a restaurant. Victor Green's hope came true, quote, "There will be a day sometime in the near future when this guide will not have to be published. That is when we, as a race, will have equal opportunities and privileges in the United States. It will be a great day for us to suspend this publication, for then we can go wherever we please and without embarrassment. But until that time comes, we shall continue to publish this information for your convenience each year." The Civil Rights Act was signed into law July 2nd, 1964 by President Lyndon B. Johnson. The Green Book was last published in 1966-67 edition that you see here. And this model is prepared for anything. She has her bikini on to go surfing, and then her snowsuit on to go skiing. She's got her sunglasses. She's ready to go. Now I'm going to get into some of Waco's ethnic background history. The graphics here show the racial distribution pattern for businesses from the late 1800s to 1900. De facto segregation followed emancipation, where African Americans were excluded from many public places and were restricted to particular residential streets or neighborhoods. However, this de facto segregation did not clump all the minorities together in one part of town. Waco's 5 wards had a fairly even distribution of African Americans to whites in the late 19th century. That is not to say that the two races coexisted together, but rather whites lived on certain blocks and blacks lived on different ones. Notice how Waco is split into 5 wards. 1 through 4 split up downtown along Austin Avenue and 8th Street, while the 5th ward is in East Waco. Orange indicated African Americans and purple represents whites. The racial separation applied to commerce as well. African American businesses grew from 14 operations in 1890 to 58 in 1900. The largest concentration of African American businesses were located in the 4th ward, around 40%. Most of these businesses consisted of grocery stores, restaurants, hotels, barbershops, and meat markets. Many of these were located on the east side of the town square on Bridge and South 2nd Streets up to the river. By the end of the 1800s, segregation practices became law. These laws were made with African Americans in mind. However, Mexicans were discriminated against as well by social custom. In the early 20th century, attracted by employment and educational opportunities, rural African Americans moved to Waco and settled in East Waco in what soon became segregated African American neighborhoods. Notice how many multiple-story buildings there are within the African American downtown area, and this is something we'll talk about in a little bit. Right? Hopefully you can see that green pointer. The separate street segregation that we just saw gradually shifted to become neighborhood segregation by the 1920s and into the 1950s. The orange blocks here are African American and the green blocks are Hispanic. Notice how many African Americans and Hispanics were living in the Baylor University area at this time. We'll get back to that in a minute. The image on the bottom right is down by the traffic circle and was called White City. Between the 1920s and 1950s, African Americans expanded their businesses in East Waco along Elm and Clifton Streets, and in downtown near the town square to include movie theaters, drugstores, grocery stores, and insurance agencies. Here we see East Waco before 1953. A pivotal point, as I think probably all of you know, came in Waco's history on May 11th, 1953. In the late afternoon, when an F5 tornado ripped through Waco, destroying much of the area around the town square and along the river. It damaged hundreds of homes and businesses, causing the deaths of 144 people. The damage totaled $51 million. The map on the left is from the Dr. Pepper Museum display, with the yellow highlights showing the path of the tornado. And the red lines on the photo there indicate the approximate path of the tornado through the downtown area. The tornado also left a path of destruction through East Waco. The school seen here on the bottom right is the East Waco Public School. And again, the red lines indicate the approximate path of the tornado. Here's downtown after the tornado damage has been cleaned up and the buildings were repaired. Earlier I pointed out the multi-story buildings. Notice how many of those are now just one story in this area. Moving to the northeast along the Brazos River, Baylor University has long had an impact on the growth and prosperity of Waco. Baylor University got its start in 1841 with the efforts of Robert Baylor, James Huckins, and William Tryon. The university was chartered by the Republic of Texas in 1845, and the school opened in 1846 in Independence, Texas. In 1886, Baylor University consolidated with Waco University and relocated to Waco. The student population ebbed and flowed over the years, but the campus grew with several building programs under various university presidents. A key time period for our discussion was under President Abner McCall, who added 55 acres with 5 new buildings during his leadership from 1961 to 1981. Here we see Baylor University at some time after 1941, when the Blacks-only Kane Homes public housing was built, which you see hopefully right there. I can't see the pointer very well. And before 1954. The Brazos River is at the top and Baylor University is in the foreground. Keep an eye on the red circle area in this photo and the upcoming photos to track the changes of that surrounding African American neighborhood between Baylor and the Brazos River. The building that we're tracking was called the Green Tree Club Cafe, located at 1324 East 4th Street. The cafe was owned by Ollie and Marie G. The G's purchased their first home here in 1928 and opened the restaurant by 1934. It appears that the backyard has a concrete slab with a number of picnic tables that you can see right there. The images on the right show zoomed-in views of the front and rear of the cafe and house. So this is the house, that's the cafe, house, cafe. By the early 1960s, Baylor is buying up nearby parcels and demolishing houses and small businesses. This photo is dated to 1962. And the red circle shows our Green Tree Cafe. The Green Tree Cafe is still there in 1963, but the surrounding demolition and new construction of the university continues. Kane Homes was sold to Baylor in the mid-1960s and demolished by 1970. With the expansion of Baylor University out to the river and the resulting demolition of the ethnic neighborhood, the G's moved to East Waco by 1964, reopening their restaurant at 1305 Gulson Road next to Browns Lake. They retired in 1968 and moved to the Estella Maxey Place, an African-American housing complex in East Waco, which still exists today. The Green Tree Cafe building near the university is now gone. In the foreground, you can see the area has been cleared for the interstate highway construction project, while the left side has been cleared for the university expansion with very few houses left in the area. Another major event that impacted ethnic minorities in Waco was the Urban Renewal Program. This program started after World War II and went through several phases of evolution through the early 1970s. It involved public efforts to revitalize aging and decaying inner cities, involving massive demolition, slum clearance, and rehabilitation. The decline of the urban core was blamed on what critics deemed functionally obsolete old buildings and infrastructure, rather than competing socioeconomic trends such as desegregation, expansion of urban highways, and proliferation of post-war visions of suburban life. In 1958, Waco initiated the Waco Urban Renewal Project to take advantage of available federal funding. This Waco project was a 20-year, $125 million renovation effort to rid the city's urban core of what city officials considered inner-city blight. President Nixon ended the program in 1973. This Housing Act program evolved into the Federal Model City Program, and in 1967, Waco was selected for this program. The result of both the Urban Renewal Project and the Model Cities Initiative was the stabilization of Waco's commercial urban core, clearing of substandard housing, and the construction of new facilities, including new apartment complexes, a convention center, and a shopping center. And that all sounds really good until you realize this meant the broad demolition of ethnic areas and the displacement of minorities. The wholesale clearing occurred primarily around the City Hall area of downtown and along both banks of the river. The demolition caused the displacement of several minority neighborhoods, including Calle Dos and Sandtown. The majority of East Waco was identified in a 1956 study as suffering from a hodgepodge of heavy and light industries. These have encircled small residential areas, preventing access to others, and have jeopardized any orderly arrangement of land uses in the eastern section. So in this photo, you can see the downtown area where the City Hall is, and then the clearance of the Calle Dos neighborhood where the convention center will go. And then here we have Sandtown. This section was primarily Hispanic, and African Americans were slightly further east or south, I guess you call it here. And then you have I-35 going up there, and you can see that it's not complete yet because it just trails off into nothing. And then you have Paul College in there. And that is a broad brush of Waco's history and key impacts on ethnic minority neighborhoods, including African Americans. Moving on to the project itself, the Texas list was created from a total of 34 different travel guides of 43 towns, followed by the number of resources in the community. The towns with the most sites are Houston with 115, Dallas with 83, and San Antonio with 79. Waco had 36 sites. Here is a list of Waco's sites, along with a map that shows the locations of travel guide sites in Waco. Red is for extant sites, and blue are for demolished sites. On the THC website is an interactive map of Texas sites. Here I've zoomed into Waco's downtown and the Baylor University areas. And then on the right is a Sanborn map of the east side of the square showing the Black business locations listed in the travel guides. There were other African American and other minority businesses in the general area, as a glance through the Waco city directories would quickly show. And here I've zoomed in to sites in East Waco. The extant red pins are for the YWCA, Paul Quinn College, and Odessa's Beauty Shop. Next, I'm going to talk about a few of Waco's travel guide sites. I managed to sneak one site in already, the Green Tree Club Cafe, with the Baylor expansion history. Much of the information that we got was found on Ancestry.com, newspapers.com, and a very helpful book at the Waco Central Library called African American Heritage in Waco, Texas, by Dr. Gary H. Radford Sr., along with many images coming from the Baylor University archives and the Waco History webpage. I'll start with a gas station, as they often had refrigerated bottled soft drink dispensers on site, and the early filling stations were the precursors to the modern convenience store. This is Hicks Service Station, which evolved into Hicks Motors, both of which we can see here. The square is just off the photo to the left, and you can see the suspension bridge in the top left. The Hicks Service Station was owned by Fred Henry Hicks. He was born in 1900 in Falls County to William and Viola Hicks, who lived on a farm. Mr. Hicks graduated from Prairie View College with a degree in mechanical arts and taught there for a time. He first appears in the Waco City directories in 1923, living at 315 Spate over by Baylor with his mother. In 1928, he married Lola Bell Wiley, and they resided at 1217 Rennock Street in East Waco. He is listed as a mechanic working for Stanford Auto Exchange. By 1932, he was a salesperson for Samuel S. Bryant Automobiles at 615 Franklin Avenue. By 1943, he opened his own filling station at 125 Franklin Avenue, which you can see in the bottom photo. He sold the filling station by 1951 and started his own car dealership at 120 South 2nd, right across the street from his old gas station. Fred and Viola also lived at this address briefly before they moved to 1020 Carver Street in East Waco by 1951. As a car salesman, Mr. Hicks competed against white salesmen and won a prize 6 times for increased monthly production with a $100 cash bonus. Sometime after 1958, the Black downtown area around his 2nd Street dealership was cleared under the Waco Urban Renewal Project, and his business relocated to 1100 East Waco Drive. Mr. Hicks was very active in civic and religious affairs. He was a deacon at the Second Baptist Church, and he was an active member in the NAACP and YMCA. He was frequently a top fundraiser for the YMCA for over 30 years. Mr. Hicks passed away on February 17, 1981, in Waco at the age of 80. Fred's wife, Lola Bell Wiley, was born in 1904 to Calvin and Mary Wiley in Falls County, Texas, and had 2 siblings. Her father died when she was 1, and the family moved to Mart, Texas. Mrs. Hicks received her education at the Anderson High School in Mart and moved to Waco to attend Paul Quinn College. She also went to Tillerson College in Austin, Texas Southern University in Houston, Stanford University in California, and the University of Hawaii. Her first teaching position was in Falls County at Upper Zion Elementary School, and then at South Bosque School in McLennan County. In 1942, she taught at the Waco ISD system at J.H. Hines Elementary School until 1953, when she became the first Black woman to become principal in the Waco elementary schools. In 1959, she transferred to the East Waco School, which had been all white, but was now integrated and renamed R.L. Smith Elementary School. She was described as an energetic and efficient administrator who initiated and encouraged quality teaching and innovative ideas. She retired in 1969 and passed away in 1997. In 2022, I had an intern, Danielle Dixon, who took on the ambitious summer project of documenting historically Black colleges and universities in Texas that were listed in the travel guides. Paul Quinn College was one of them. The first Black college in Texas is Paul Quinn, which was established in Austin in 1872 as the Connectional School for the Education of Negro Youth by a group of African and Methodist Episcopal preachers. It moved to Waco in 1877. It is one of the rarities because it was founded by African Americans for African Americans, meaning it had a Black president and Black faculty members from its inception, unlike many HBCUs, which were often founded and run by whites. Fundraising campaigns helped finance newer and more suitable buildings, many of which were built by the students. One of the buildings included a dining hall or cafeteria serving food and beverages to the student and faculty. In 1990, the college relocated to Dallas, where it is still a functioning HBCU. Here we see the 1922 champion football team on the left and a printing class on the right. From Danielle's research, we created posters that you see over there, which is 2 of a set of 4. Some of you may know the name of Dr. James W. Yancey II for his affiliation with Paul Quinn College, as he was the college president from 1939 to 1942. Dr. Yancey was born in Widener, Arkansas in 1909 to Nathan and Elizabeth Yancey. He attended Tucson College in Arizona, where he studied economics, and he was the first Black student to be appointed department assistant in the Department of Public Administration at the college. He also attended Prairie View A&M and taught there from 1933 to 1939. He earned his doctorate degree at Texas Southern University in Houston. He married Henrietta Benson Miller in 1939 while at Prairie View. Henrietta was a music teacher, also from Arkansas. Their daughter, Henrietta Elizabeth, was born in 1940. After 5 years at Paul Quinn College, he served as a principal and teacher for the Olive Heights Junior High School and the J. Newton Jenkins Elementary School. He was active in the AME church community and served on various committees for the Negro Teachers Association of Texas and the Free and Accepted Masons Lodges of Central Texas. In 1959, Dr. Yancey was made custodian of a collection of Paul Quinn College photographs taken by F.A. Gildersleeve, including some of those black and whites that we just saw for Paul Quinn, as well as an extensive library of Dr. J. Newton Jenkins, a collection of over 700 volumes of religious, classical, and collegiate books and volumes of music. Dr. Yancey added a large room onto his residence to house the Jenkins collection. Dr. Newton was a pastor at the New Hope Baptist Church in Waco for 43 years. Dr. Yancey and his wife were owner-managers of the College View Court Hotel, located at 1129 Elm Avenue, which was across the street from their house at 1116 Elm. College View Court Hotel makes its first appearance in Waco City directories in 1951. The 1952 Sanborn map here shows the College View Court Hotel before its expansion, which is the light-colored part on the postcard that you see. And then we're looking at here. Champion boxer Joe Louis once stayed here in 1950 and announced his retirement at the hotel, although he didn't actually retire until the following year. The hotel was in business at least up until 1971, still under Yancey's ownership, and came under threat of condemnation by the city of Waco in 1976 as being uninhabitable and in dangerous condition. As you can see in the bottom left Google Street View, all that is left of the hotel are the concrete steps and slab foundations. Dr. Yancey moved back to Arkansas, later passing away after a brief illness in 1995. When the Ebony Motel opened in 1951, it was advertised as the South's finest motel for colored people. At the time, this was considered outside of Waco's city limits and was on the main road to Dallas. Built on the corner of Harrison Street and Hillsborough Drive, the motel offered 12 rooms, each complete with private baths, ceiling fans, Venetian blinds, Sealy inner-string mattresses, telephones, and room service. The room rate was $9 a week. In addition to the motel was an air-conditioned restaurant called the Ebony Lounge that served fine foods, beer, and soft drinks 24 hours a day. The lounge was also used for meetings by churches and other groups, such as the Fellowship Social Club. Interestingly, this site was owned by a Jewish person. My research showed that this was not that uncommon to have sites that welcomed Black patronage that were owned by non-Blacks, such as Jewish, Hispanic, Asian, or other non-white ethnic or cultural heritage groups. The motel was owned by David Hoppenstein, a successful entrepreneur seen here on the left, but the motel was managed and operated by African Americans for African Americans. Mr. Hoppenstein's parents, Max and Sadie Hoppenstein, emigrated from Russia in 1907 and moved to Waco by 1913. He was born in 1916 in Waco. He attended Baylor University, Baylor Law School, and Harvard Law School. After serving in World War II, he invested in real estate, eventually owning over 1,000 properties in the Waco and Dallas areas. Mr. Hoppenstein married Lorraine Hoppenstein in 1947, and they remained married for 65 years and had 3 children together. He stayed active in the real estate business until he was 93. He passed away in 2013 at the age of 97, and he is buried in the Agudith Jacob Cemetery in Waco. In 1951, at the motel's opening, Travis and Fannie Jackson, a Black couple, managed the motel. By 1916, African-American Henry California was the manager. Ebony Motel was last listed in the 1969 Waco City Directory and then became Malibu Inn Lounge. The last advertisement in the Waco Tribune-Herald for the motel was June 10, 1976. The building is no longer extant, and the street view image is from 2007. So far, we haven't found much information about either the Jacksons or Henry California. The Blue Front Cafe opened in 1943 by Walter Hines at 116 South 2nd Street. Mr. Hines was born in the early 1890s in Waco and was raised in a single-parent household by his mother, Alice Hines. In 1911, he married Victoria Harves, and they had 3 children. Mr. Hines was a jack of all trades, as he was alternately a waiter, shoe shiner, taxi driver, barber, car repairer, chauffeur, and grocer before he became a cafe operator. He ran the Blue Front Cafe from 1943 and until he retired in 1960. The restaurant provided home-cooked meals, cigars and cigarettes, and had a soda fountain. After Mr. Hines retired, the Blue Front Cafe changed ownership several times before it was purchased by Ira Kirkendall, who renamed it Kirk's Cafe. We find that this is not his first foray into the restaurant business. Ira George Kirkendall, also known as Ivory George Kirkendall, was born in 1905 in McLennan County to Reverend Jacob and Sarah Kirkendall. The Kirkendall name was prominent in Waco as Ira had 14 siblings with at least 3 brothers following in their father's vocation of being a preacher. The Kirkendalls moved from an outlying farm to Waco, first led by his brother Henry in 1919, and then followed by most of the family in 1921. In 1942, Mr. Kirkendall married Maydell Mays. Ira and Maydell's first attempt in the restaurant business was in 1946 when they opened Kirk's Tea Room at 1114 South 2nd Street near Baylor, which you see on that first picture. They served soft drinks, barbecue, steak and chicken dinners, and pies. However, this business didn't last long because by 1951, both Ira and Maydell worked as cooks at Baylor University. In 1958, Maydell opened Kirk's Snack Stand at 215 Hillsborough Drive across from the Ebony Motel in East Waco, which you see here, where Ira continued cooking at Baylor. In 1962, they opened Kirkendall's secondhand store at 118A Bridge Avenue and then purchased the Blue Front Cafe in 1964, renaming it Kirk's Cafe. The cafe relocated to East Waco in 1967 when the Black downtown area was cleared as part of the Urban Renewal Project. It moved to 1000 Elm Avenue in the Grande Courts tourist camp next to Paul Quinn College. Ira retired in 1968, but Maydell kept cooking until 1971 when the cafe changed names to Glenn's Cafe. Next up is Mr. Herbert Walker, who owned Harlem Grill and Walker's Auditorium, along with several other enterprises. Mr. Walker was born in 1906 in nearby Bosqueville and moved to Waco by 1926. He began his career as a car cleaner at a dealership, but soon started his own shoe shine business at 123 Bridge Avenue, right in the heart of the African American downtown district. Within 2 years, he expanded that to include a taxi service with 10 drivers. His business evolved into the Harlem Grill from 1939 to 1946. In 1946, he moved his business over to East Waco, and opened Walker's Auditorium at 1001 Clifton Street. The club catered to Blacks and served fine food and beverages with nightly dancing and an orchestra on weekends. It had fine, elegant furnishings, a dance floor, pool tables, and a semicircular mirrored bar. Walker's was the only establishment of its kind open to African Americans in the area, so it became the place to go for entertainment, and it was a music stop on the Chitlin Circuit. So it hosted such musicians as B.B. King, James Brown, Etta James, and Ike and Tina Turner. By the mid-1950s, he added overnight lodging called Walker Courts, a recreation center in 1916, and Walker's Barbecue by 1965. He also owned a riding stable at 709 Hubert Street, which was also his residence. Walker passed away in 1980 at the age of 73 and is buried in Bosqueville Cemetery with his wife, Julia. On the Sanborn map, the red outline shows the location of the Harlem Grill in downtown, and then the aerial photograph where the green is, you can see the auditorium, which is the bigger building, and then his Walker Courts for the motel. It's right there. The most confusing listing was the Waco Longhorn Club that was listed in the category of a nightclub in the 1950 through 1954 issues of the Green Book. It had an address of 19th Street at LaSalle. Looking through Waco City directories, we never came across Waco Longhorn either by address, name, or business type. However, searching for the name in newspapers.com, we came across several references of it, but it was for a rodeo club owned by whites, founded in 1941 by Roy Drury, a longtime Waco Tribune employee. This club was one of the first of its kind and in the area and in the state. Looking on Sanborn maps, we located the rodeo grounds on LaSalle just up from the traffic circle next to the drive-in movie theater, which you see over there. A great photo right there. So, how did a white rodeo club fit into the African American world? Further research into the club led to articles and advertisements about Black rodeos. Weekend rodeos with African American cowboys began in Texas in the late 1940s with the formation of the Negro Cowboys Rodeo Association in 1947 by a group of East Texas cowboys and ranchers. The Waco Longhorn Club held Black rodeos at least as early as 1950, when an article writes about the kickoff of a 3-day rodeo with a parade that started in East Waco at Walker's Auditorium that we just talked about, going across the river through downtown over to the rodeo grounds on LaSalle in observance of Juneteenth. Notice on the advertisement here that the section was reserved for whites. Events at the Waco Longhorn Club would have sold concessions to attendees. Last up, Utopia Motel used to be Alamo Plaza Courts, which is actually a pivotal entity in the overnight lodging world. The Alamo Plaza Hotel Courts brand was the first motel chain in the United States, and it got its start here in Waco in 1929 when E. Lawrence Torrance and local judge Drummond Dizzy Bartlett saw an untapped market for affordable quality temporary housing in Waco. This brand used a distinctive Mission Revival style architecture Each formed a U-shaped court with multiple buildings fronted by a distinctive facade that mimics the Alamo. This chain reached its peak in the 1950s with 55 locations across the nation and faded by the mid-1960s. In Texas, it was located in Waco, Beaumont, Dallas, Houston, and Tyler. The Alamo Plaza Courts in Waco was sold to Albert Marlowe by 1956 and was renamed Utopia Motel at that time. Mr. Marlowe was a white man who arrived in Waco in 1915 and soon started a furniture business, a residential apartment, a pharmacy, the Terminal Hotel, and possibly more businesses yet to be rediscovered. He retired in 1968 and turned over management of the motel to his son, Donald Marlowe. He passed away in 1969. Utopia Motel was only listed once in the 1961 Bronze American Travel Guide. Unfortunately, this motel developed a reputation as being a house of ill repute, as there were numerous newspaper accounts about theft, drug use, illicit meetings, and prostitutions as early as 1956. In early 1976, the Waco Citizen newspaper published a notice that the motel would be demolished due to being in violation of substandard housing requirements. Other motels in East Waco were also slated for demolition or to be repaired in that same notice. Okay, and that's just a few of the sites that we've researched. We do have more information on other sites. If you're interested in learning more about this project, the THC has a web page on it. The link is at the bottom of this page and on the last slide, as well as on the handouts that are on the cocktail tables back there. Here are just a couple of screenshots of the web pages that include a brief project background, interactive map of the sites, a list of the travel guides, and listings of the counties and communities with the number of sites, and then various linked web pages for research projects for intern posters and thematic topics. Last summer's intern, getting ahead of myself there, here we go. Last summer's intern, Gavin Porter, a graduate student at the University of Texas at Austin, researched travel guide sites in Waco. His research culminated in the poster that you see here. It's in the back of the room. And I've also brought the full-size poster so you can take a closer look and read the information about a handful of sites. In addition to Waco, 4 other interns have researched Austin, Houston, and San Antonio, and these posters can be found on the project website. To wrap things up, these are some of the books that were used on this project, as well as the facsimile of the Green Book, which I have up here. They weren't very big. It's the exact size of what they used to be. You're more than welcome to take a look at this. And then I have books that I brought with me that we've used throughout this project, if you're interested in taking a look. And these covers are included on that handout, so you don't have to take pictures or write down everything right now. And then here's my contact information as well as the web links for the various stuff on the page. And that's it. And I'll turn it back over to Joy, or I can just take questions up front. Okay, I'm on my own. They've thrown me to the fish. Thank you. Questions? Comments? Yes, sir.
There's a hub also in that corridor where Walton Auditorium was, across Waco Drive, called Clifton Street. And that was a very, very popular destination place for African Americans at that time, that had a lot of restaurants, night spots, and a lot of other businesses that would cater to African Americans during that time, in the 50s, 40s, the 60s. And also was the site of the Alpha Theater, which was a theater that was owned or opened by 3 African American GIs from Fort Hood, bought that spot in 1947. And it became one of the major hubs for a lot of what they call race films, Oscar shows, movies. At that time, I was a black filmmaker. They would show those movies there. That was a very popular destination for blacks to go and have a spot to go see movies. And there was a lot of different spots that along that area from Elm Avenue to Waco Drive, just littered with activity places that were there, mostly for entertainment and eat spots. Matter of fact, there was a restaurant there that served only whites. Blacks could go and get a meal there, but they had to go to the back. And that place was actually owned by a black woman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a place in Beaumont, Patillo's Barbecue, did the same thing. They were a mulatto family, but they only served whites in the restaurant, and blacks had to go around to the back. Yeah, interesting history stuff. On the Waco poster back there, there's at least 2 sites that are located on Clifton Street that were researched. But yes, it was a big hub. Between Clifton and Elm Street, that's where all the happening was going on in East Waco. Anyone else? All right. On the tables back there are the handouts, and then also my business card if you want to get in touch with me for any reason. I'm still looking for volunteers. There's 780 sites across the state that need to be researched. And as you can see, there's a lot of research that goes into each one of these. And Joy and I met when I gave a presentation last year for the Texas Heritage Tourism Board, something or other, in Round Rock. And she contacted me after that presentation that I gave because I mentioned something about Green Books. And she goes, hey, how about we work together because I'm doing convenience stores about African Americans, Hispanics, and Jewish people in Waco. And it's just like, I have this summer intern that's going to be on board, and let's see what he wants to do. And we all teamed up, and we met several times for lunch and to do research together, and hence the invitation for here today. And we're actually going to be presenting at the Texas Historical Commission's Real Places Conference in April together in Austin. And registration is open for that if you're interested. Okay, I think I've done enough plugging unless there's anything else.
Thank you. This has been really great.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you for coming out.